1932, Billund, Denmark. The air is cold, the world is broke, and inside a worn-down shed, a man grips a block of wood like it's his last lifeline, because it is. Ole Kirk Christiansen wasn't just a carpenter, he was a widower, a father, and a man drowning in grief, surrounded by tools he could no longer afford to use. His workshop was falling apart, orders had dried up, and creditors were knocking on his door. The Great Depression had swallowed everything, except one thing, his obsession with making something that would last. What started as a wooden duck carved for his children quickly spiraled into something far greater. But not before dragging him through fires, literally and metaphorically. This isn't just a story about toys. It's about survival, loss, innovation, and how a broken man in a broken world built one of the most beloved empires in human history, one tiny brick at a time. Ole Kirk Christiansen was born in 1891 in a small village called Filskov, Denmark. Life was harsh in the rural countryside, and from a young age, Ole learned the value of hard work. He was the youngest of 13 children in a poor farming family where every member had to contribute just to survive. But Ole had something different, a skill that would define his future. As a child, he was fascinated by craftsmanship. He would watch in awe as local carpenters shaped wood into beautiful furniture and sturdy homes. Determined to learn, he took up an apprenticeship as a carpenter in his teenage years. Unlike farming, where everything depended on unpredictable weather, woodworking felt like something he could control. With nothing more than his hands and tools, he could create something valuable. By the time Ole was in his 20s, he had mastered his craft. He worked in Germany for a while, honing his skills, before returning to Denmark with a dream, to start his own carpentry business. He saved every bit he could, and in 1916, he finally purchased a small workshop in Billund, a quiet town with few opportunities. But Ole saw potential. He built furniture, ladders, and anything his customers needed, gaining a reputation for quality craftsmanship. Life seemed stable, and by the 1920s he had a wife, children, and a business that was growing. But fate had other plans. In the 1930s, the world was plunged into the Great Depression, and like millions of others, Ole faced an economic storm that threatened to wipe out everything he had built. Orders slowed down, money dried up, and in the blink of an eye, his business teetered on the edge of collapse. And then, the unthinkable happened. In 1932, tragedy struck Ole's life in the most devastating way. His wife passed away, leaving him alone with their 4 young sons. With no steady income, mounting debt, and the weight of fatherhood on his shoulders, he was faced with an impossible choice: give up and take what little he had left, or fight for his family's future. Despite the grief and hardship, Ole refused to surrender. He needed a new idea, something smaller, something that people would still buy even in the worst of times. That's when inspiration struck. He looked at the scraps of wood piling up in his workshop, and an idea took shape. If people couldn't afford furniture, perhaps they could afford something else, something simpler: toys. At the time, wooden toys were still a rarity, but Ole believed that even during economic hardship, parents would find a way to bring joy to their children. With his last remaining resources, he began crafting small, hand-carved wooden toys, trucks, animals, and pull-along figures. It was a desperate gamble, but it was all he had left. His neighbors and local shopkeepers were skeptical. Toys? They scoffed. Who's going to buy toys when they can barely afford bread? But Ole was undeterred. He poured everything into perfecting each design, making sure every toy was built with the same precision and craftsmanship as his furniture. And then, something unexpected happened. Despite the skepticism surrounding his wooden toys, Ole Kirk Christiansen pressed on. He loaded a small crate with his handmade creations and took them to the local market, hoping for a miracle. The first day was slow. Passers-by admired his work but hesitated to spend what little money they had. Still, he refused to give up. Then, something remarkable happened. A shopkeeper in Billund placed a small order drawn to the fine craftsmanship of Ole's wooden ducks and miniature cars. One sale turned into another, and soon word began to spread. Parents, desperate to bring a moment of happiness to their children during hard times, started buying his toys. Little by little, demand grew. Encouraged by this newfound success, Ole refined his designs, making each toy more durable and visually appealing. One of his biggest early breakthroughs was a pull-along wooden duck with a unique feature. When pulled, its beak would open and close. Children loved it, and the toy became a bestseller. But Ole's business was still fragile. He had no savings, his debts were mounting, and he had to be cautious with every move. In a bold attempt to expand, he made another risky decision. He officially named his company. After much thought, he settled on Lego, derived from the Danish phrase "leg godt," meaning play well. He had no way of knowing that this simple name would one day become one of the most recognized brands in the world. Just as things were beginning to improve, disaster struck once again. In 1942, a raging fire tore through Ole's workshop, reducing everything to ashes. Years of hard work, countless toys, and all his equipment gone in a single night. Most people would have walked away, but for Ole Kirk Christiansen, failure was never an option. With no time to mourn his losses, he did what he had always done. He rebuilt. Borrowing money and rallying his workers, he constructed a new, more modern factory. Instead of giving in to despair, he saw an opportunity to improve, to create something bigger and better. His unwavering belief in the future of Lego kept him going. As the 1940s progressed, the world was changing. The scars of World War II were still fresh, but industries were evolving and new materials were emerging. One of these materials caught Ole's attention: plastic. At the time, plastic was seen as a cheap alternative to traditional materials like wood and metal. Many toy makers dismissed it, believing parents wouldn't buy plastic toys. But Ole saw something different. In 1947, against the advice of many, Lego became one of the first companies in Denmark to invest in a plastic injection molding machine. It was a massive gamble. The machine was expensive and there was no guarantee it would pay off. But Ole believed that plastic was the future of toy making. That same year, Lego produced its first plastic toy, a simple, interlocking brick inspired by a British design called the Kittycraft self-locking brick. The concept was revolutionary, but the early versions lacked stability. They could be stacked, but they didn't hold together firmly. Still, Ole knew he was onto something. His son, Ole Kirk Christiansen, who had been working alongside him, shared his vision. Together, they worked tirelessly to refine the design, experimenting with ways to make the bricks connect more securely. What they didn't realize was that they were on the verge of a breakthrough that would redefine playtime forever. By the early 1950s, Lego was gaining traction, but the company was still struggling to perfect its plastic bricks. The original design worked, but it lacked the secure connection needed to build stable structures. Kids could stack the bricks, but they easily toppled over, limiting creativity and frustration-free play. Then, in 1958, after years of trial and error, Ole Kirk Christiansen made the breakthrough that changed everything. He and his team developed a new interlocking system that used small cylindrical tubes inside the bricks. This innovation allowed the bricks to snap together firmly while still being easy to pull apart. For the first time, children could build sturdy structures without them collapsing, a seemingly simple improvement that made Lego bricks infinitely more versatile. That same year, Lego patented the modern brick design, securing its future as a one-of-a-kind toy. What seemed like just a small tweak turned out to be one of the most important patents in toy history. Even today, Lego bricks from 1958 are fully compatible with the ones produced now, proof of how revolutionary the design truly was. But Lego's journey was far from over. The company had an incredible product, yet it still faced skepticism. Toy stores weren't convinced that plastic bricks could replace wooden toys. Parents were hesitant, believing plastic was cheap and disposable. To prove them wrong, Godfrey devised a master plan. Instead of selling Lego as just another toy, he positioned it as a system of play, a concept where every set was part of a larger, endless creative world. He introduced themed kits, instruction booklets, and new expansion pieces, all designed to make Lego more than just a toy. It was an experience. Slowly but surely, sales began to climb. The skeptics were proven wrong. Lego wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. But just as the company was reaching new heights, it was about to face one of its biggest challenges yet: ruthless competition and legal battles that threatened to tear it all down. Competing toy companies saw Lego's success and began producing their own plastic building bricks, often mimicking Lego's design. Some even claimed their bricks were better, offering cheaper alternatives to parents who were still skeptical about spending money on plastic toys. For Ole Kirk Christiansen and his son Godfred, this was more than just a business challenge. It was a fight for survival. They had spent decades perfecting the Lego brick, and now others were trying to cash in on their hard work. Lego had one major advantage: its 1958 patent, which legally protected the interlocking brick system. With this patent, Lego was able to stop some competitors from outright copying their design. But it wasn't a permanent solution. The patent had an expiration date, and once it ran out, rival companies would be free to copy Lego's design without consequence. Despite this looming threat, Lego pushed forward. In 1963, they made another bold decision, switching their bricks to acrylonitrile butadiene styrene ABS plastic. This material was more durable, more vibrant in color, and had a better grip than earlier versions, further solidifying Lego as the superior choice. Meanwhile, Lego expanded aggressively. It launched its first international sales office in Germany, opening doors to a much larger European market. By the late 1960s, Lego sets were selling in over 42 countries, proving that this little Danish company had truly become a global phenomenon. But Lego's real game changer was just around the corner. In the early 1970s, the company introduced something that would forever change how kids played with Lego: minifigures and themed sets. However, even as Lego reached new heights, a dangerous storm was brewing, one that would test the company's resilience like never before. By the early 1970s, Lego had established itself as a dominant force in the toy industry. But as competition intensified, the company realized that simply selling bricks wasn't enough. Kids loved building, but what if Lego could offer them entire worlds to explore? This idea led to one of the biggest innovations in Lego's history: themed sets. Instead of just giving children a pile of bricks, Lego started designing sets that allowed them to create cities, castles, and space stations. The first real breakthrough came in 1978 with the introduction of Lego Town, Lego Castle, and Lego Space. These weren't just sets, they were full-fledged universes. And to bring them to life, Lego introduced something that would forever change its brand: the Lego minifigure. For the first time, Lego had tiny characters that could interact with the sets. These figures had simple, smiling faces, movable arms, and interchangeable parts. Suddenly, Lego wasn't just about building. It was about storytelling. The impact was immediate. Kids could now imagine themselves as knights defending castles, astronauts exploring the galaxy, or police officers chasing robbers. Themed sets became an instant hit, and Lego's sales skyrocketed. As the 1980s arrived, Lego pushed its themes even further, launching some of its most iconic sets: Lego Pirates, 1989, the first theme to introduce unique facial expressions and accessories, breaking away from the standard smiling minifigure. Lego Trains, bringing moving parts into Lego sets, making play even more interactive. Lego Technic, aimed at older kids and teens, introducing complex gears, motors, and working mechanical parts. But Lego's real test was still ahead. As the company entered the 1990s, a new challenge arose: video games and electronic toys. Could Lego survive in a world where kids were becoming more obsessed with screens than plastic bricks? Video games, once a niche market, were rapidly evolving into a cultural phenomenon. The rise of Nintendo, Sega, and later PlayStation meant that kids were spending more time glued to screens than ever before. The tactile joy of snapping bricks together was being replaced by digital adventures in faraway worlds. Suddenly, Lego was facing a crisis it had never encountered before. Sales began to slow. For decades, Lego had been the undisputed king of creative play, but now it was struggling to compete with the instant gratification offered by video games. For the first time in its history, Lego was losing relevance. Desperate to stay ahead, the company made a series of risky and costly decisions. It poured massive amounts of money into creating new experimental products, some of which strayed far from its core identity. Lego tried to develop its own video games, build amusement parks, and even create action figures that had nothing to do with its signature bricks. The company was throwing ideas at the wall, hoping something would stick. But instead of fixing the problem, Lego's rapid expansion led to disaster. The company was hemorrhaging money. Many of its new products flopped, leaving Lego with warehouses full of unsold stock. The brand that had once symbolized endless creativity was now drowning in debt. By the early 2000s, Lego was on the brink of bankruptcy. Executives scrambled to find a solution, but nothing seemed to work. The company that had once reinvented play itself was now at risk of being sold off in pieces. But just when it seemed like Lego's story was coming to a tragic end, an unexpected turnaround was about to take place, one that would not only save Lego from collapse, but would also make it stronger than ever before. By the early 2000s, LEGO was in free fall. At the center of this crisis was Ole Kirk Christiansen, the grandson of LEGO's founder. For years, he had watched his family's company struggle, and now he had to face the brutal truth. LEGO had lost its way. The company was chasing trends instead of focusing on what made it special. The solution wasn't more flashy products, it was returning to its roots. In 2004, LEGO made a bold and painful decision. Christiansen stepped down as CEO, handing control to an outsider for the first time in the company's history. His replacement, Jørgen Vig Knudstorp, was a former McKinsey consultant, young, ambitious, and ruthless when it came to making tough calls. Knudstorp wasted no time in cutting away the excess. He slashed LEGO's bloated product line, shutting down projects that weren't directly tied to its core brick system. Gone were the failed action figures, unnecessary theme park expansions, and overcomplicated play sets that confused rather than inspired. Instead of chasing trends, LEGO did something radical. It listened to its fans. Designers started engaging with LEGO enthusiasts, learning what real builders wanted. They focused on quality over quantity, refining the design of their sets and bringing back the magic that had been lost. But the real game changer came when LEGO did something it had once been afraid to do. It embraced collaboration. In the mid-2000s, the company struck a deal with Lucasfilm, leading to the creation of LEGO Star Wars. The success was instant. For the first time, LEGO had merged its classic building style with a blockbuster franchise, proving that it could thrive in the modern entertainment landscape. LEGO didn't stop there. Partnerships with Harry Potter, Marvel, DC, and even video game properties like Minecraft followed, turning LEGO sets into must-have collectibles for kids and adults alike. At the same time, LEGO fully embraced digital culture. Instead of fighting video games, it created its own, releasing a string of hit LEGO video games that perfectly blended humor, storytelling, and interactive building. In 2014, it took things even further with the LEGO Movie, a massive box office success that not only entertained audiences worldwide but also reignited global excitement for the brand. Within a decade, LEGO had gone from the brink of bankruptcy to becoming the most valuable toy company in the world. The company had learned a hard lesson. The key to survival wasn't abandoning its identity, but embracing what made LEGO special in the first place. But LEGO's journey is far from over. As it continues to innovate with robotics, augmented reality, and sustainability efforts, one question remains. Can LEGO continue to reinvent itself for future generations without losing the magic that made it legendary? Today, LEGO stands as a global powerhouse, a far cry from the struggling company that nearly collapsed in the early 2000s. What was once a small Danish workshop crafting wooden toys has evolved into an empire that spans movies, video games, theme parks, and of course, the iconic bricks that started it all. LEGO's remarkable turnaround wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving. By 2024, the company's net worth soared past $9 billion, making it the most valuable toy company in the world. LEGO sets are sold in over 140 countries, with millions of new creations built every single day. But despite its success, LEGO refuses to stand still. The company continues to push boundaries, embracing technology, sustainability, and new creative directions. It has invested heavily in robotics and AI-powered building experiences, bringing LEGO into the digital age without losing its core identity. It has also committed to producing sustainable bricks, aiming to replace traditional plastic with environmentally friendly materials by 2032. Yet even with all these advancements, LEGO's true strength remains the same as it was nearly a century ago: endless creativity in the hands of those who play with it. Whether it's a child building their first tower, an adult creating a detailed cityscape, or a movie director using LEGO to tell a story, the company's magic lies in its ability to inspire. From Ole Kirk Christiansen's humble beginnings to its near-bankruptcy and stunning comeback, LEGO's story is more than just a business tale. It's a testament to resilience, reinvention, and the power of imagination. As LEGO looks to the future, one thing is certain. As long as there are dreamers willing to build, LEGO will always have a place in the world. If you enjoyed the incredible story of LEGO's rise, you'll love the journey of the genius behind one of the most influential tech companies today. Click here to discover how Jensen Huang built NVIDIA from the ground up and revolutionized the world of technology.